anyway, so this is Tea and Tales in a new venue. And I'd like to introduce Jeremy, because Jeremy is in charge of this place and also within the theatre. Some of you might have seen one of the opening production, which was...
Venus and Fur.
Yes.
We did this last week.
Absolutely.
Or just closed this last week. And right now we're running Boeing, which will close tonight.
Aha. And coming up?
Yeah, House of International Theatre is a new platform run by Down the Rabbit Hole Theatre, which is an English-speaking professional theatre company, and a company in Hamburg called Manusarts. And the two have come together to create a new venue for English-speaking and international performance. So we have I'm the local artistic director. My job is to make sure that the local English-speaking community gets a place to come and perform and do their work. And then Jana is the international director, so she's bringing in work from London and Hamburg and the US to perform here. So we have a lot of big things coming up in the future. We will be doing, every month we do some events. We have Tea and Tales, which we are very happy about. We have for the children during the day, 10 and 11, and then we have from 2 to 4 for you lovely people. And then we have happy hour events where we have a jazz band and musicians that play, and people can come and they can drink and talk and get to know other people from the community. We have some special events like this next month on March 18th. We'll be doing a reading of Karl Čapek's book. I don't remember the name of the book. It's a Danish release of one of Karl Čapek's books that we're doing together with the Czech Embassy. And then afterwards we're doing a staged reading of his play, Rossum's Universal Robots. And we'll be doing that. We also have a group from Malmo that's coming over the 27th through the 29th of April, and they'll be doing something called Talking Heads, which is an Alan Bennett TV series that performed on the BBC, and they've now taken it and turned it into a theater production, and then they'll be doing it here with professional actors from Malmo. So 3 evenings of great comedy through that. And then right afterwards, the Hamburg group is coming up, and we're doing Lovers, Authors, and Other Strangers, a week of stories based on Woody Allen short stories. So it'll be a theater production based off Woody Allen, and then we'll perform on the main stage with professional actors. So if you're interested in more information, here's our little program for March through May, and then we'll be bringing a lot of that stuff back as well under Copenhagen stage the first week of June. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we have humming from the fridge, but we'll have to just sort of incorporate that as a great vibe. Well, I'm going to invite the first storyteller on stage. Kasper, please join us.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. My name is Kasper. I'm going to tell you several shorter stories. I thought when Laura said, will you come and tell stories about women? I thought, of course. Women are the reason we tell stories, are they not? And it should be about the women we should talk about. And I thought, well, that must be, of course, those who give life to us and those who walk with us during childhood and gets to know us our whole lives. And then eventually those we fill our heads with, those we dream of. And then those we marry. And those who dream of us. So I thought I'd do a little of all. Also, women are the reasons that we lie, that we get inspired, that we improvise. And one of those stories about one of these women, about the dreamers, I want to tell you first. Those women who dream. I, for many years, have been a storyteller at Rigshospitalet, the big hospital, the great castle. For 14 years, I've been going there, telling them stories, the children. And if you're a child there, you have probably quite a big problem in your life. Something unhappy, something long-stretched, something painful, something that will not go away by itself. But then you need breaks still from the beeping and the booping and the numbers and the doctors and the smell of hospitals. So when called upon, we tell them stories to make their minds fly away. I've done that, and I was called to the floor, which has the 10th floor in the Tower 3. And if you've been there, you know this is a very special place. We must shh these people. Oh, they did it themselves. Thank you. Very, very polite disturbance. It is the department for the burned, what do you call that? The burns. And there was a girl at the age of 12 who had been in a terrible situation, so she burned most of her face. And it's not a pretty sight. It is not. The place itself is not a pretty sight. It's very, have you been? It's very warm there. And the reason it's very warm is that they heat it up a lot. Because when you're a burn victim, you cannot have your clothes on. Because then it will grow into your wound, healing wounds. And that's not okay. So you have to be naked or very close to, so it has to be warm there. And you go in, it has this smell of kind of like bacon. But nobody can talk about that, of course. And this girl was burned in the face, and I heard the nurse say, "It'll be better, you'll be fine." And of course, that was a lie. Of course it was. She would never be fine. She would be better, of course, but fine. No. I know where that lie came from. It came from it was a good lie. It wasn't an evil lie. It was a lie that said, "I know you're in pain, darling, but things will get better." I know it came from a good heart to spare her the pain of the moment. And I was left alone with the girl. And she looked at me and she said, "Do you know any stories of ugly princesses?" So I told her a story, and I'd like to share that story with you. And she said, "Is it okay if I close my eyes while you tell? So I can better imagine it." And I said, "Of course you can." So she just lay there in the bed in all the white and closed her eyes. And I told her the story of the bride of the wind. Do you know the story? No, the wind was a great magician, a mighty man. They said he looked handsome, had a great castle somewhere, but nobody really saw him. He could get invisible and move and fly around. But now, rumor had it that he would marry. Oh, that rumor reached the little village on the shore. And in that village was 3 sisters living in the house. Their parents had died and left the house, and they all grew up the same and yet different. The oldest one, so pretty, such a mermaid cascade of curls, such winning laughs, such beautiful eyes. And her youngest sister, the same, only a redhead, of course, and curvy and with a lot of humor that make all the men laugh with her. And all men in that village would have their necks stretched just to look when those sisters walked by. But they were nothing compared to their youngest sister. She was so beautiful. And the 2 sisters didn't like that. They liked the attention for themselves. They wanted to get married themselves and not her. So they made a plan. They said, "Sister dear, why don't we go camping? Couldn't that be fun? Let's go into the woods, hey?" And they didn't usually do that, so she got confused. I said, "Well, are you sure you want me to come with you?" And they nodded and they smiled. "Yes, sister, we will go far, far into the deep forest where nobody can hear us." And so they did. They went long and far into the trees. They made their ways and they found a very distant spot. They made camp and a bonfire. Oh, and they waited for night to come, and all the black shadows of night just came crawling in closer, and all the sounds of the night came out, and all the flames lit the fire and colored the closest trees. And they moved closer. And they started telling her, you shouldn't be pretty. You shouldn't be pretty. And she said, sisters, we are sisters. You should not be jealous of me. I am not jealous of you. But then they jumped her. And they pulled her down by the hair. And they took fiery sticks from the bonfire and they burned her face. All over burn marks, and tore out her hair and scratched her. And beat her. And she cried and begged. Nothing helped. Nothing could satisfy their fury until they were done. And in the morning they just left. They just left her there. And they went back. And they lived on. And many weeks later she came back too. All scarred, swollen. She went into the house and life moved on. Like always before, except for one thing. Nobody really looked at her that way anymore. And the sisters were happy with themselves. Now rumor has it that Win wanted his marriage, he wanted a wife, and he would come to them. His servant came ahead of him and said to everybody, come to the beach. He will show himself for the right one. You must just say whatever he's pulling his sleigh with. Just say that. And you'll be married to him. You will have his riches, his life, his magic, his castle, his love. And everybody went. But nobody could see him. They could feel him all over, but nobody could see him. So people took a guess. A string. He's pulling his sleigh with a string. Off. A horse. He's pulling his sleigh with a horse. Off. And in the end, it was only the three sisters left. And the oldest said, with a golden chain. With a pearl necklace, said the second. And they left. And only the youngest sister was there, feeling the wind, tasting the salt from the waves, feeling the wind in her dress. And she saw it and said, he's pulling it with a rainbow. He is pulling it with a rainbow. And the wind appeared in front of her and said, yes, I am pulling it with a rainbow, and you shall be my wife. So he lifted her and he took her home to this great castle, magnificent. And he married her. And they lived together for a while. And he looked at her with warm eyes and a beating heart. And then one day he said, you have scars. I have seen them. They matter not to me. But I'd like to offer you to remove them, if you wish so. And she said, no. And there in the story, I paused it at the hospital and looked at the girl and said, do you know why she said no? And she nodded. Because it wasn't her fault. So I could continue the story. Yeah, that is true. I have no shame of my scars, she said. My sisters did this, not me. They're a part of my life. But I will not bow my head in shame. I've done nothing wrong. This is me now. And I'm all right like that. And the wind said, I respect that. But your sisters must be punished. And she said, well, don't kill them. They have no idea what they did. They were blind with envy and jealousy. It was too late. He was gone out the window, and the wind flew, and he found them. And when they saw him coming, they started shaking. Fear entered them. And every bone in their body started to tingle. There was no way to run, nowhere to hide. And with this great magic, he turned them into trees. Asp trees. You may know them. ever since then, this is how the asp came. And ever since then, just if the tiniest wind approaches them, they dance and shake in fear of him. And this is why they do that. And now you know. That was the first story.